So we're gonna start again online and in person with Silas Monroe.
Hi, y'all. This has been really just an inspiring afternoon already, so thank you for having me. Yeah, I was kind of joking. I feel like I really appreciate design incubation, but kind of like I'm like in and out of it. But I don't know. I'm just inspired, honored to share some of my research. I feel like a lot of things we've been talking about are going to come up and be interconnected in my talk. I'm going to just set a timer. So I'm going to be sharing about a body of work that I've been doing for the last few years called On the Consideration of a Black Grid. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this framework called poetic research that I use at Polymode, but also in my own personal work. I'm going to talk about a project called BIPOC Design History, where this idea or this term of Black grids first came to be. And then I'm going to unpack that historically, that term, and then experientially. And then I have a little music for everyone to share. So some of the work that I show here is not just mine, it's collaborative. And so in addition to being an educator, I also run a design studio called Polymode. Polymodal is like many ways of being, many forms of expressing ourselves. We are very interested in working across a lot of different media, from printed books to typefaces. Actually, I wanted to plug if anyone's here in New York City or has access to a live stream Monday night, myself, my business partner, Brian Johnson, and then the principles of XYZ type. We're going to be giving a talk about Polymode Sans, the typeface, and how it came to be. So you can do that in person, or those online, you can join. It's free. It's at Cooper Union 41 Cooper Square. It's the kickoff event to typographics, which is going to be lots of stuff happening this week. So we talk about this process that we use in any design project at Polymode that's called poetic research. And for me, I think the easiest way to describe it, it's like the kitchen sink and everything else. But it's basically a way that we bring our identities as designers and our lived experience to projects. And we're very interested in not just what a client brings to their brief, but also like what we bring in, what we're thinking about, what we're reading. And I feel like poetic research also like can feel like this, where like, I think sometimes in design history or in research, we like need to have this analytical answer, but like also it just admits that sometimes things are kind of messy. And I'm just really grateful to be involved with this project called BIPOC Design History. It's been happening for a few years. And actually, I feel like this idea of creating a course that is about centering BIPOC voices in design history came from some earlier writing and research. I had the good opportunity to contribute to a book about W.E.B. Du Bois and his data visualization, this book called W.E. Du Bois, Data Portraits Visualizing Black America. It was edited by Britt Russert and Whitney Battle-Baptiste. There were a bunch of other contributors to it. And it was just amazing to write about this Black sociologist and historian who I knew about, but I didn't know that he was a designer. And it just kind of like blew my mind and heart open about the possibilities of like, what if you add Du Bois to a design history curriculum like the one that I got when I was an undergrad or grad student. And so you could have still the kind of canon. Oh, I'm hearing an echo myself. I'm gonna lower this. Can you still hear me? Okay. That and kind of thread and reframe like the canon around this idea of BIPOC voices. And so that ended up becoming this experiment that came to life during the pandemic. In 2021 and 2022, we hosted, and then recently, last year, we hosted 3 different courses where we center the experience of historically marginalized designers. And we did that through pre-recorded lectures that we then streamed live. And there was a lot of really exciting dialogue that came in those classes. There were chats blowing up, people sharing a lot of resources. So it was very much this kind of collective one-room schoolhouse. And that experience has just created all these other directions of research and opportunities to learn. But in one of the courses, the Christopher Dingwall he was giving a lecture about Chicago design in mid-century, and he was talking about the Johnson Publishing Company, and he showed this issue of Ebony called The Black Revolution, which had this really amazing like typographic expression in it. And then he also showed this image, which was the interior of the Johnson Publishing Company headquarters. It was their cafeteria, designed by John Warren Musamini. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. In the chat, I put, oh, this looks like a black grid. And there was a lot of like interesting controversial comments in the chat and the conversation. In the Q&A, this well-known design critic, Gunnar Swanson, who I really respect and look up to, he was like, Silas, there's no such thing as a black grid. Like a grid is just a grid, depends on how you use it, which to me was like, that's not like how I see it. And also I love people saying, no, you can't do that. And so that really inspired me to like go deep into both contemporary art, but also design history to feel like, where are the black grids? And so this is the work of Adam Pendleton, who's an abstract painter. He has the term Black Dada, which I think is super interesting. One of his paintings where he's using graffiti and paint in these very interesting, like structured, but also expressive ways. One of the other speakers during the BIPOC Design History course was Audrey Bennett. This is a visualization for some of her research with her partner, Ryan Eglash, who basically they have this alternate history of fractal geometry coming from Africa in African architecture and design. This is a floor plan of a chief's palace in Cameroon. And as you go closer to the chief's quarters, you have this harmonic fractal experience, which is really cool. And so that made me think, oh yeah, the Du Bois things that I was looking at, like those are also kind of these black liberatory forms that are grids. The work of Amanda Williams, who's an architect and artist. This is her project, What Black Is You Say. It was an installation at the Storefront for Architecture. She was looking at black as not a monolith. That uses polymode sands as part of it. I was thinking about the women quilters of the Bees Gend collectives and their soft grids. The designer, yeah, Lady Uraston, designer Sesha Garbut, they design an identity for Trisha Hersey, who runs the NAP Ministry, which is all about rest as a kind of resistance. And she references, or sorry, Sesha, they reference quilts from the Underground Railroad period as a kind of graphic form. And so that led me to also try to process the idea of a black grid, not just as a scholar, but also as an artist and a designer. And so one of the first things I made was this risograph in 2021 that was part of this exhibition that Ramon Tejada curated at the at Bennington College, where I was really first starting to like put myself into the black grids. And it also reminded me of an earlier work that I made that was a collage in 2019 that was reflecting on my mom's Ugandan lineage and sort of like a conflict with being a gay person and like wanting to go home to Africa, but like not exactly feeling safe. This piece is called What Kind of Child Are You to Be Treating Your Mother This Way, which is what she would say when I was in trouble. And so it's like this fragmented African mask and like my own exposed body. And that just kind of led to other experiments. I took a workshop with Vanessa Tinizere. She gave one of the lectures in the Latinx class. She's an Ecuadorian graphic designer who does these amazing pattern workshops. So I made patterns with this open source tool processing. You probably know about it, to make these kind of moving black grids. Those became other computational drawings. But I did actually get the chance to go to Uganda. And one of the most important or memorable things that happened on the trip was my cousin making matoke, which is a traditional Ugandan dish. That's the savory banana. And she was assembling these leaves together. And I was like, oh man, this is a black grid as well. And that idea of a grid that could be communal, that's a grid that's connected to family, that's something that you eat, like not just black and white on a page, became this powerful extension of like what a black grid could be. I'm just going to take another minute or so to wrap up. I'm playing my grandfather's drum with family. And that led to just a larger body of work that involved video, projection, physical collages, and textile work, because I want to honor time and I put way too many slides in here. I'm just going to cruise through these super quick. And that manifested really in this exhibition that was up at Lesley University earlier this year, that kind of took all of these ideas and put them into this physical space, and different material forms that really became this way that this idea could be expressed not just in intellectual idea, but also in physical forms of making and digital experiments and liberatory black spaces. I'm really excited about these woven pieces. These are jacquard pieces of the What Kind of Child Are You Be Treating This Mother This Way, and one of the other black grids. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, DI chairs, for inviting me back. I think I was a co-chair for 6 years. Yes, it was wonderful. Miss you guys. So I have a really practical presentation. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Robin Landa. I'm a distinguished professor at Kane University in the Michael Graves College. And just a little bit about me, I write a lot. I don't go anywhere, but tomorrow we're leaving for Virginia Beach, so I have to exit right after this because I haven't packed yet. When I left the house, my husband said, "Where are you going?" So I write a lot. My new shameless plug, my book is coming out this month, but I got an advance copy, so thank you. And it's my first university press, so I'm really, really excited about it. So there are lots of things that make tenure track faculty nervous. Conducting research. And anybody asking you if you are conducting research. And of course, there's all kinds of research. There's creative research, as we saw, and Silas does both. He showed us examples of both, but it's all nerve-wracking. So here are some practical tips for research and also just staying sane. It's important to do research that excites you, because you want to be able to sit down or stand up and do it. And so you have to nurture that and stay engaged. It's also very important to have a clear research trajectory, because you really do, and I think it's important, and nobody really ever explained any of this to me starting out 4 million years ago, but you're going to kind of have an identity within the field. So they say, hey, that's Dan, he's a tech expert, he's a design expert, right? It's important. And it's also important to engage with colleagues and not work in an isolated way, because you have people in your university who are experts in various things, and that's one of the great things about being in academia, is that you can reach out to various experts, which I've done throughout my career. But you do want to be really selective in research partnerships. So I've co-authored, this book is co-authored with somebody who never wrote a book before, which is a journey in of itself. And I've partnered with very close colleagues and very dear friends, and you just always want to have Tums around, right, Eris? It can be a difficult process, but you want to find people who complement your own skill set. That's really important. It's doing research. People reach out to me all the time because they know that I write a lot. And somebody reached out and said, well, I want to write a book about creativity. And I thought, so does everybody else. And so you want to do research and ask research questions that aren't obvious, that are rigorous, that are investigative, or even heretical. And you always want to demand a kind of rigorous analysis and allow for refinement. And you want to always, as my dean says, move the discourse forward. What is it that you're doing that will create a new conversation or move the whole discipline forward or fill a void in the discipline? And don't struggle alone. My colleague Denise Anderson is here in the Robert Bush School of Design, and she was just telling me that we have architecture librarians who are really knowledgeable, right, Denise? And like, go figure that they'll be helpful. So, you never know where you're going to find help. An early stage network, sharing ideas, that's why design incubation is so wonderful. And as Denise was saying to me before, it's so accessible and friendly. And I found that when I came to your second year at FIT, and I said to everybody, I want to be part of this. This is so wonderful. It's such a great place to share thoughts and ideas and research. So you really do want to present, and this is a great place to present, because it's very welcoming and very, it's not a high pressure situation. It's really important to present for tenure, and it's also great to be a peer reviewer, because you learn about what other people are doing, right? I think, Camille, you asked for people to volunteer to be peer review and even do book reviews. Please review my books. And it's improbable to imagine a research journey without relying on some other people and getting feedback. It's always good, if you do have an idea, to present, to see how interested people are in it, how enthusiastic they are about it. And participating in workshops at your own university. Often they have research offices who can help you with your research, and learning how to write a grant, learning about the peer review process. So for example, for this book, the proposal went out for peer review and then went to the editorial board at the university, at Columbia Press, and then it went to the faculty board at Columbia Press. And then when I finished the manuscript, it went to all three gates again. And so that peer review process can be really, really nerve-wracking and daunting. A writing group is always helpful. Out of the design research, the fellowship, we've had people form groups that have been very helpful, seeing them through, some very successful. And Barry, whose book is a bestseller, is in the writing group. I think it was Megan D in that same writing group. So yeah, so Megan's book is coming out soon. It's really helpful. And you really want to prevent burnout by doing something that you love. I don't know if I'd be standing here in front of you if I didn't have dancing classes. I don't know what I would do without them. So it's really important to have something outside of your profession to help you through it. And this, I just found out about this. I think this is really interesting. I don't know if any of you read the book Atomic Habits. It's an interesting way of thinking about habits, that you can get rid of bad habits and form good habits. But if you do have a good habit, like let's say you work out every day, you can anchor your research to that good habit so that you have another habit on top of the other habit and it follows through. And so you know that after you work out, you're going to go write or you're going to go design. I think that's interesting. I always safeguard my research time, although sometimes I get really distracted by email and text and whatever is happening, but I really try to safeguard it. And Megan D at Virginia Tech calls design the big D and research the big R. And I think it's great to think of it that way. And this is how I think about it, and this is why I think I'm productive. I view it as the same way I do brushing my teeth and taking a shower and working out, non-negotiable. And what do I mean by that is that I don't argue with myself when I'm about to go do it. Like, oh, do I have to do it today? Can I go watch my new show? Can I go shopping? I mean, like, I don't even go through that in my head. I just do it. And the non-negotiable thing really works. So that's my big tip of the day. And Aris and I in the fellowship talk about separating your research from your notes, from writing your narrative, from revising, from editing. And it's interesting to learn how to separate out those acts, because if you start writing and start editing right away, you might not make as much progress. And it's really important to seek out diverse perspectives. I'm a huge fan of getting as many diverse voices as possible about your research. I really think groupthink is very dangerous. So if you only show it to like-minded people or the same group, you're not going to get what you need. Ideas expand when there's a diversity of people thinking and talking and bringing their ideas to the table, which brings me to the role of public scholar. So in recent years, I've embraced that. And what that means is that I write also a lot of articles for very big audiences. And so that I'm able to disseminate kind of an academic brain to a very wide audience. So I recently wrote for Harvard Business Review, which is actually an esteemed journal, even though it's business. I think it's a Q1, and that was a really interesting process. And I've written a couple of 2 or 3 articles for Fast Company, which has a huge reach, huge distribution. I'm a columnist for Inc. magazine, which has about 250,000 readers every month. And this is, I don't know if any of you read Rick Rubin's bestseller, The Creative Act, but I'll give you a chance to read this. And I totally agree. I always work on several things at one time. Writing an article for a public magazine is, you don't have to, it's not as difficult as writing for an academic journal. So it's kind of a relaxing process. So while I'm writing a book, I'm doing that as well. And so I don't know if I can get to this or not, but.
How you doing?
Uh-oh.
I am doing pretty good.
Uh-oh.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
That's enough. So the answer is how is your research going? That's your answer. Thank you so much.